important that you restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. When speaking, please proceed to the microphone and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. If they wish, members of council may ask you questions following your presentation. However, the function of council at this public hearing is to listen to you rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. In accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw, presentations by members of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes each. If a person has additional information that he is unable to provide within that time frame, he shall be given further opportunities to address council after all other interested members of the public have been heard a first time. Please refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion during this public hearing so that we may ensure as impartial a hearing as possible. After this public hearing is adjourned, council members will not speak to the public on this matter until after the matter has been dealt with at a public meeting. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the presentations made at this hearing. The next thing I'm going to comment on is the confirmation of advertising and posting requirements. Notice of this public hearing was given in accordance with the Local Government Act and the Community Charter by distributing the notice as follows: publishing in 2 consecutive editions of the Osoyoos Times on March the 9th and March the 16th, placing the notice on the bulletin boards in the Town Hall and Planning and Development Services Department on March the 9th, 2016, and posting on the town's website and distributed via e-news on March 9th, 2016. And the next is a summary of the staff report. So, Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1085.95 2016, addition of craft distillery as a permitted use. The purpose of this meeting is to seek public input on zoning bylaw amendment number 1085.95 2016, which received first and second readings on February the 15th, 2016. The proposed amendments in this bylaw were initiated after Planning and Development Services received an application from Tumbleweed Spirits Incorporated in order to establish a small batch craft distillery to manufacture fine spirits. Specifically, the applicant is seeking to add craft distillery as a permitted use in the M3 Special Industrial Zone for the subject property located at 76001 Lakeshore Drive. In addition to the applicant's proposal, Planning and Development Services staff has reviewed whether there are select commercial zones that may also be suitable for accommodating craft distilleries. The zones identified as appropriate include the C1, Downtown Commercial, C3, Highway Commercial, and C4, Tourist Commercial zones. In relation to these amendments, the bylaw also proposes to add craft distillery as a defined term and amend Schedule 1, off-street parking, to address parking requirements for the craft distillery use. So we now have a report from our senior planner, Dilys Wang, and she will talk to this addition as a recommended use. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So in addition to the summary of the staff report that was just presented by Mayor McCartoff, I will elaborate more on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. So the applicant wishes to establish a small batch craft distillery to manufacture fine spirits, primarily vodka and gin, which would be produced by the fermentation of malted BC grains, followed by a distillation and bottling process. All of the main ingredients would be locally sourced from BC and the South Okanagan Valley. The facility is also proposed to include a small retail tasting room where customers could sample and purchase the distillery's products as well as tour the facility. As shown on the property location and aerial maps that are attached to the report in the public hearing package, the subject property is zoned M3 Special Industrial and is located on the east side of Lakeshore Drive between Main Street and 56th Avenue. The site is surrounded by other properties also zoned M3 to the north, east, and south. To the west across Lakeshore Drive are commercial and residential properties. There is also a second building resembling a warehouse with an attached restaurant on the same lot. At the moment, all of the lands zoned M3 within the town are concentrated and limited to 6 other parcels that surround the subject property. The M3 zone permits a range of uses, including but not limited to service industries, manufacturing plants, food processing plants, wholesale and distribution facilities and warehouses, veterinary services, and cafe, coffee shop, and restaurant. The addition of a craft distillery use would be compatible with the general uses that are currently permitted in this zone. It is therefore proposed that craft distillery be added in the M3 zone as a permitted use with the following proposed definition. Craft distillery means an establishment licensed under the Liquor Control and Licensing Act that manufactures alcoholic beverages by distillation with a maximum annual production volume of 50,000 liters and may include the tasting and retail sales of alcoholic products produced on site. Including in the definition the annual production limit of 50,000 liters, which is one of the criteria as set out by the province for establishments classified as a craft distillery, would help limit the scale of the use. Larger distilleries that are more industrial in nature would be more suitably located in the M1 General Industrial or M2 Heavy Industrial zones, so namely the Buena Vista Industrial Park. In addition to the M3 zone, staff has reviewed whether there are select commercial zones that may also be suitable for accommodating small-scale distilleries. Based on a review of zoning bylaws from other jurisdictions that have provisions for craft distilleries, such use is generally supported in commercial zones. The other zones identified as being appropriate for accommodating a craft distillery use are C1 Downtown Commercial, C3 Highway Commercial, and C4 Tourist Commercial. It should be noted that these 3 zones already allow a licensed establishment as a permitted use. In order to address parking requirements for craft distilleries, Schedule 1 off-street parking will need to be amended. For the craft distillery use, a general rate of 1 off-street parking space per 40 square meters of gross floor area is proposed. Based on the existing building's approximate area of 2,400 square feet at the subject property, a total of 6 parking spaces will be required. For any craft distilleries proposed in the C1 zone, the current established rate of 1 off-street parking space per 50 square meters for non-residential uses will be maintained, referring to the availability of shared parking in the area. According to the town's official community plan, all of the properties in the M3, C1, C3, and C4 zones are designated general commercial, tourist commercial, or downtown commercial. Overall, the OCP supports the expansion of business and job creation, as well as the diversification of four-season commercial attractions for residents and tourists.
Good. Do you want to talk about we won't do the implications and the options at this point.
Right.
Good. Thank you very much, Dilys. And now what I'm going to do is ask if there's been any correspondence received.
We haven't received any written correspondence.
Good. Thank you. And so what I'd like to do is, if the applicant is present, I would like to ask the applicant to come up and speak first. Is the applicant present? Oh, please do. Please come up to the microphone. It should be on.
I have a loud voice. So.
It needs to be on Granicus, and that's why we have to do it into the microphone.
Okay, is that okay like that?
Perfect.
Yeah,
all right.
That's good. Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you. My name's Andrea Zradek, and my husband, Mike Green, is here with me tonight, and just wanted to thank Council and the Mayor for giving us an opportunity to present and to speak with you here today. I'm just going to give you sort of a general overview of our concept and the business, and obviously myself and Mike. I'm an engineer by training. Mechanical engineer is my background. My husband, Mike, is a contractor, independent businessman, entrepreneur as well. We've both been traveling and vacationing in the Osoyoos area since I was 5 anyway. I learned to swim in Osoyoos Lake, so I've been here a long time. Have a home up on Anarchist Mountain on the Raven Hill development, Raven Hill, part of the old Regal Ridge development. And I guess about 2 years ago, we came up with this idea of starting a craft distillery in Osoyoos. Very passionate about wine and also the wine industry, but thought that the craft industry would be an interesting add-on to Osoyoos, given that it's a very growing business sector in Canada. I don't know if you all know, but BC has about 35 of Canada's 70 craft distilleries. So we are the country leader in craft distillation. So we were both very excited about this potential business plan. And we also want to incorporate the traditional European methods of distillation, and that is using, as Dillis pointed out, 100% BC grown grains, so wheat, rye, and barley, to make a premium vodka and gin. That's our initial product line, as well as to look at using local fruits grown here in Osoyoos to complement and add some flavor to those products. It is, I mentioned, a growing business in Canada, and our plans are to be opening hopefully in about a year from now, so spring of 2017, and have as part of that operation a front-end retail area where we can do some tastings and at the back end do some tours of the distillery itself and on-site sales as well of the product. There are some other distilleries that have opened up in the area recently, which some of you might be familiar with. There's one up in Oliver called Dub Glass. He focuses primarily on making gin. I think he's starting to get into whiskeys as well. A bit further north, up in Naramata, we've got Maple Leaf Spirits, as well as Okanagan Spirits in Kelowna, Urban Distilleries in Kelowna, and Old Order in Penticton. So there's a handful in the area, but nobody right now in Osoyoos or nearby that's in the business. So with that summary, I just wanted to thank you all for giving us an opportunity to speak here today, and very excited about working with the town and building a business, and welcome any questions or comments that anybody may have.
Thank you very much. You seem very enthusiastic about it, and we will certainly go through the process and make sure that we do everything correctly in order to allow this to happen, if that's the end result. Councillor Rhodes, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Well, thank you. It's all very interesting. I have two questions. One has to do with environmental impact of the brewing process. I'd like to know if there's any cautionary areas or anything that we should be looking for in that area. And the second question being, part of your business planning, and I know it might be a little premature right now, are you intending to employ people? And if so, do you have an estimate of how many?
Okay, I'll start with the first question. So on an environmental impact perspective, craft distilling is similar to the winemaking business in that you have a raw product. In our case, it's grains, so wheat and rye and barley. You ferment that with water and introduction of yeast to produce the alcohol, so produce sugars and then produce the alcohols. The byproduct, obviously, is the alcohol, which is bottled and sold, in addition to like a gray water that's That's really no different than water from, from a sanitary application. The solids products has an interesting use. In fact, we want to look at donating the grains to some local cattle farming or ranching or farming communities because it is a food product. So from that perspective, we actually see it as a beneficial use. In my opinion, no negative deleterious effects as a result of the operation itself. As far as hiring people, yes, definitely. We would see definitely hiring people because the business we think would be seasonal, because Osoyoos is very much a tourist-oriented community, particularly in the summer months. Definitely we would see hiring local staff to help us during the sales and busy time in the summer months, and possibly during the winter time to do production as well. Initially, our thinking is let's focus on production in the winter time when it's quiet, and then focus on sales and marketing in the summer. I can't give you numbers, but probably a handful of people for sure. And if it's really successful, even more people.
Good, thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Just a question. Under the Liquor Control Board Act, for a craft distillery, and I'm just curious actually, how does distribution look for that outside of retail? Is that something that is distributed province-wide or wholesale to restaurants and retail liquor outlets?
All of the above,
Okay.
But initially our focus is selling from our retail space because that's the most cost-effective way for us to do it. So, we're targeting initially 1,000 cases a year of production and sales. Hopefully we can match production with sales in our first few years of operation. Going through liquor distribution and other outlets is a secondary option just because they take their cut off the
Right.
top. So ideally, if we can sell product from our own retail store, that would be our preference.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor King?
Thank you, Mayor Ricardo. I guess my question is, I don't know if you've done enough research yet. Do you feel that there'll be any fumes or odors to impact the neighborhood?
It'll kind of smell like a bakery, actually.
Bakery.
Yeah.
Yeast.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
car sitting out front of your place, that's Jim.
Yeah. It's a good question because we get asked that a lot, and obviously we're learning about it ourselves as well. But we've taken some courses, we've done some hands-on work as well, and it's very much like being in a bakery. It's very yeast and grain intensive, so that's really the aromas that you, if any, you would pick up on.
So if there was a need, you'd put some type of ventilation system if the need arose?
If you
Your
needed
thoughts?
to, it's a batch process. It's not a continuous process, and we can control how much product we produce. And again, that's going to be largely dictated by how successful the sales are. To do one complete batch cycle from start to finish, from grinding your grains to mash, fermentation, distillation, is about a 10-day cycle.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually very short, turnaround time from the time you start to the time you get your end product. And then we'll just have to gauge it as we go, which is why we have to be really careful in how we size and select our equipment.
Councillor Youngberg?
Hi.
Hi.
Congratulations on a great venture.
Thank you.
Sounds interesting.
Thanks.
A couple of questions I have is, have you put together any type of feasibility to know what your traffic's going to be like on a daily basis? I'm sure that you would have used another distillery to sort of give you some guidance on what you're expecting in the first month.
You mean in terms of number of bodies and people?
Mm-hmm. And buyers, what do you think your volume's going to have to be in the first month?
Yeah, so we sort of see opening up May, June timeframe, right at the start of the summer season when the busy season starts. We're hoping to do that 1,000 cases a year kind of in that 4 to 5 month window. So we're hoping for some good foot traffic, but we're also planning to solicit and get ourselves on the wine tour, the bus wine tours, and have bus groups come through, wine tour groups come through. To that point, it's a very good question. We were initially looking for a location downtown where we would hopefully see a lot more foot traffic, but there's actually no location downtown that's suitable for what we needed, hence, which is, the location that we've selected right now. But if we can get in that 20 to 50 visits per day, I think we'll be there. I mean, Osoyoos is a busy place in the summertime.
Mm-hmm. So then my second question is I'm sure planning can answer this, but I'm really concerned about the parking. I'm a parking alcoholic because I live downtown.
Yeah, okay.
And I just have this huge problem with everybody doing things, and particularly I know that property quite well, and
Okay.
and
Yeah.
going in and out, and I just wondered what arrangements have been made regarding my concerns about the parking and the bus tours and things like that coming in.
Maybe
Yes.
we could ask Dillis.
Yeah, so for this particular site, because the front of the property is, in terms of the space in front of the property is not a lot of space. There is space at the rear of the property. Based on the needs of the applicant, we determined that about 6 parking spaces would be proposed for this site. So that is based on the proposed off-street parking space requirement of 1 space per 40 square meters of gross floor area.
So you'd use the 6 at the back probably, and then leave the
At the
front
front,
8
actually.
open, so you
6
can
are at the front.
At the front.
6 at the front, and then where would the bus go?
Or a
Or
minibus with
even a
you're asking
minibus
for
or
tours.
Yeah,
anything
you
like
could.
that.
You could, or even across the street. There is space across the street. Staff, we could park in the back of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Just a
that,
concern, I think that
Yeah.
should be covered.
And I think that's maybe
Because I
something.
think, there's some people in the area that would really be concerned when they see people
Oh, I
parking
see.
in their
Yeah.
driveways.
Sure.
And we just don't want any more people coming here talking about,
got it.
you did this and you did that, because we've got all these people parked in
Yeah.
our yard, because I think you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think you'll have a lot of traffic during the
Oh,
summer.
Well, thanks for that feedback.
And,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
think it's interesting and something that we really should cover at this point in time.
Okay.
So there's a fair amount of property here, I would think, on this area. So maybe
Yeah.
that part of it could
We can
be
work
looked
out
at.
the configuration
Sure.
of the parking spaces.
Okay.
Keep most of the parking at the back, leaving that open front.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, we will open it up
All right,
to the
thank
public, and we can certainly call you back if we need to ask any questions. Brianne, could you give me the list of people that have signed in, please? Thank you very much. So we will. We have 4 people that have signed on to talk, and we will ask for them to come up and speak for 5 minutes, and we will do the same thing. If there are any questions that council has, please identify your name and where you live, and we'll certainly go through. So I see Andrea and Mike, you're already on here and you've already spoken, but you may want to at the end again. Okay, so could we have Mrs. Dulcetta first, please?
Good evening. I'm Waidola Dulcetta, who lives at 41 Bayview Crescent. You have said that you have advertised this process, excuse me, in the paper, which I don't read and I don't subscribe to, that you put it in the City Hall and in the Planning Department. I only come to City Hall once a year to pay my taxes, so I have no opportunity to see it. I understand that 2 out of 5 households near me got messages from you people somehow, I don't know, about this. I received nothing. And I find that as a taxpayer...
Could I interrupt for a moment and tell you that the way that these people would have received messages is through e-news. And the e-news opportunity is available to everyone.
Who has a computer, yes.
Yes, absolutely. And so that we have done legislatively everything that
That
we
you need to
needed
do.
to do. So it's been, I read out all of the
I
things.
heard
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
However, you're assuming that everybody has a computer, and they don't. Some of us have them, but are not computer savvy. and I'm one of them. We'll leave that. The reason I'm so upset, beside not knowing about it ahead of time, is, by the way, I was a teacher for 37 years in a junior high, and I don't usually get worked up like this. I'm usually calm, cool, and collected. I'm not tonight. I understand, and I may be wrong, that when you mix grains and make it into alcohol, there are funguses that come off it. If that is true, and I didn't have time to look this up and make sure I knew my facts well, because I only heard about this at 5 o'clock tonight. If that is true, I don't want funguses and mold anywhere near my house, thank you very much. And this distillery will be near our house. I also worry about noxious fumes, even though this lady tried to tell me there wouldn't be any. And I'm concerned about that for 3 reasons. There are 3 people in our house, 2 of whom are asthmatics, my daughter and myself. And my husband has, oh God, the name of it's gone. It's the first cousin to miner's lung. And if he gets any noxious fumes, I mean, I have to be so careful about household cleaners and so on. He can't breathe. And if he gets in any mucus or build up in his lungs, he gets a cold, and we're in the soup, because the man cannot breathe then. For this reason, I am very upset. I don't want anything like that in my vicinity. I'm happy to see new businesses come to Osoyoos, don't get me wrong. I think we need it, especially with this nonsense that's going on with the schools. We need everything we can to build this town up. But I don't think we need a distillery near households. We have an industrial park. Why isn't it there? Now, she sort of answered that she wanted to be near where people would pass all the time. Have a think about the wine distilleries that we have in this town and the vicinity. They're not on a busy road. You have to go off the road and park in their parking lots. And people do it. Why is the distillery any different? I don't understand that. And I'm not a stupid person. You don't go to university and get 2 degrees if you're stupid. But I really do not understand why it has to be near homes. People live there. They don't want all the coming and going, and 6 parking lots, believe me, is not going to be enough. With the traffic that goes up and down Lakeshore Drive, and people parking there and coming in and out, it's going to be madhouse. There is not enough parking there either. Go and have a look. You'll be surprised. There's not as much room as you think there is. And there are other businesses right beside where they want to put it. It's not right. I have sympathy with them. I admire their get up and go, and I wish them well. But I don't wish them well near my home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity. I don't know if they could bring up the picture of them. I didn't quite get the address you're at.
41 Bayview Crescent.
41.
Bayview Crescent.
I got Bayview.
Across the street.
It's the second one down. The second one down from the turnoff onto Bayview.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
Councillor Campbell.
Hi. Thank you very much for voicing your concerns. The one concern that you voiced, I want to make sure that we're dealing with this in facts. So when we talk about potential fumes or harm to breathing. Is there anything that can be produced from that industry or from the process you've gone through that speaks to that at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I think what Mrs. Bull's setup
Yes.
is referring to is a fungus that has been known to exist around whiskey production and the aging of whiskeys, but it's also in large volumes. It's also really important to state the facts, as we pointed out, Councillor, that funguses are prevalent in the entire area around us in the wine
Of course.
and any other industry. We all know that from a biological perspective. But simply mixing grain and water does not create a fungus. So we've done some research on that, and I'd be happy to sit down with Mrs. Lucetta.
I'd be happy too,
And sit down and discuss.
because I'm not
this.
anti what you're trying to do. I understand that.
Yeah.
Just not the way you're doing it.
I'd be happy to sit down and go through some of the concerns that she
Well,
has.
thank you very much, and definitely you've given us a couple of things, Mrs. Dulcetta, to look at. The parking, definitely we need to be very careful about how we deal with that, especially if there are tour groups wanting to come in, and the fumes and the fungus. And definitely those things will be brought up. So
Thank you. And
Thank
I
you
said
very
at the
much.
beginning, I didn't have time to fully look into this.
yes.
And if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Next on the list is Ozzie Abbott. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I got that right? Good. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ozzie Abbott, and I live at 43 Bayview Crescent, right next to my neighbors. And I'd like to bring up a few points. I mean, I am absolutely in favor of what these folks are trying to do, and it sort of becomes, well, it seems to be the wrong place to have it. My thought about it is living on Bayview Crescent, I'm very familiar with what goes on Lakeshore Drive. Lakeshore Drive becomes an absolute zoo from May long weekend to September long weekend. Any more traffic onto Lakeshore Drive is going to be a problem. 6 parking spots, and they're hiring maybe 4 or 5 people. What's going on? In the back of that lot right now, there are rental places, an RV rental, repair shop, some places for mechanics to look after their stuff, and they all have parking situations too. So it would be very interesting to follow through to find out the big picture instead of just saying we could put 6 parking spots in. There's 2 parking spots in front, not very much room, and that traffic will be coming out right on the lakeshore. I mean, we all know the problem with Lakeshore. We need a traffic light on Main Street in Lakeshore just for 6 months a year. It would be wonderful to see it, but it's up to you guys to do that for us. That's a big issue for me. Now, we talked about parking and spaces in behind. There's no available parking on Bayview Crescent because we have the Okanagan RV place right now. And when it first started, the RVs were pretty small, but now they're 40, 45 footers, and we get them go by our house all day long. I'm not complaining. They're doing a good business. They're quiet. They're respectful for our community. But there's no room for any other cars on that street. That's a point I have to bring forward. Safety concerns. Now, have we looked into safety concerns? There's going to be alcohol stored on premises. What safety concerns? I'd like to hear from the fire department, just as one, to know what kind of an arrangement we have to see if there's going to be a problem one way or the other with it. I'm not saying there is, I don't know, but if they're going to have a relationship to 50,000 liters a year, as proposed, that's a fair amount of product sitting on there. We don't have any gas stations near any residential area in all of Vesuvius right now. Why do we have to have this storage unit across the street from children, a block away from the biggest amusement park for children in all of Vesuvius? Something to be considered. Smells. Now, I didn't know about this until just a couple of days ago, so I haven't had a lot of time to research it. But as the people with asthma and people with problems like myself, I'm really concerned about smells in the neighborhood. They're going to have a serious scrubber because when you mix those products together, they smell. And whiskey, yes, more than anything else. But if they're a real distillery and they want to do it in their expansion in the years down the road, whiskey's probably going to be one of those things they're going to like to do. And I don't blame them, because there's better product out there for people to buy, good profit margins. Why not do it that way? But it concerns me. Now, what's going to happen to the waste? They say the waste grains, well, they're going to sell them to the farmers or give them to the farmers. That's cool. What about all the water it's used? Now, we do have a water issue here, as the mayor knows. And we have to think about what happens to that water. That water is going to go into the sewer system and be processed in our sewer system, which is already taxed. So I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, what else can I do? So I talked to my neighbors, and this is what Wydella said, that some of the people didn't get any information. Well, I have to say, I got mine mailed to me. And I have to say that I was one of the few in the neighborhood. Now, in the neighborhood right now, there's quite a few people who aren't here. There are snowbirds, they're away in Arizona. So there isn't a lot of people who can come forward and make any presentations or hear what's going on. So my thought to council would be, maybe we can postpone this for a month, or maybe a little longer, to go through the process. So when everybody on the street's back in town, and people who own properties from other countries that live there come back into town, we can discuss it again. So they will have a chance to have an input also. So in the big picture, I just hope that we can see eye to eye that this is a little different from most places, because we have residential right there. And it's just that one little block of Bayview Crescent. But there's a lot of nice people and a lot of expensive homes in the area, and puts a lot of taxes into the coffers of Osoyoos. Thank you very much for letting me talk.
Well, thank you very much, and I certainly appreciate, I've written down some of the things that you mentioned concerning definitely the fire department, the smells, the water issues. Those are things that absolutely we need to look at before we make a decision on this, and I'm sure that Dillis has written these things
Yes.
down as well. The next two names on here are Andrea and Mike. Now, is there anything else that either one of you would like to speak to?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to our neighbors for your feedback. I'm an asthmatic too, so I sympathize. I think there's a misunderstanding about our production volumes. We're not doing 50,000 liters. That's just that's sort of a threshold with
The max.
That's what the government allows you to make.
yes
Max.
to be called a craft, but we're not anywhere near that. So from a storage perspective, we would be storing not more than 1,000 liters at a time. So you've got a very different understanding of. Pardon me.
Still makes a big boom.
Yes, it does, and so do liquor stores and other wineries and facilities. It's not an unsafe product. It's been around for hundreds and thousands of years.
Children that live across the street.
You got to address it.
Okay,
We won't
Would
be
you-
selling. We won't be selling.
Could
to
you
children.
address the
Yes.
chair, please? Thank
Yes,
you.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
No, I just wanted a chance to address some of
Sure.
the concerns
Sure.
because it's the first time that we've obviously
Absolutely.
heard them. So I'm an asthmatic as well. Certainly, I wouldn't want to put myself in risk and danger, nor would I want to do that to anybody else. From a production perspective, I think I clarified that we're not doing 50,000 liters at any one time. We may have 1,000 liters. It's very small batch operation. And on the issue of fungus, I'm an engineer, and I believe in the facts, and I'm a scientist by training. I have 2 university degrees as well. You do not get a fungus by mixing grain and water. You make bread when you mix grain and water. What Mrs. Dulcetta was referring to is, an airborne fungus that is known to attach itself to ethanol during the whiskey aging process. We are not making whiskey. Let's stick to the facts again. We are making gin and vodka. So I just wanted a chance to address some of those concerns and questions.
Councillor King?
I guess I just asked you about the water, and I don't know if you'd have an answer. What is the ratio of how much water you'd make, say, if you made your 1,000?
So roughly the ratio of grain to water is 4 to 1, roughly the ratios.
So if you had
So for every-
50,000 liters, you'd need 200,000 liters of water? If you maxed out.
No, I'm talking kilograms of grain to liters of water. So if you had 25 kilograms of grain, you'd need 100 liters of water.
Okay.
I gotta go back
That's
to-
roughly the ratio that I was referring
I
to.
guess I don't know how many bottles that makes, though.
So our target is about 1,000 cases a year, which is 12,000 bottles.
1,200.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
12,000.
I think the smallest winery between here and Oliver, I think, is Hidden Chapel. They do about 1,500 cases a year, so we'd be smaller than even the smallest wineries on the Golden Mile.
Yeah, you're talking a big number.
Sure.
Councillor Rhodes.
There's just one thing that we may want to add to the list to get some facts would be maybe a brief capacity analysis of how much you would be returning into wastewater. And
Yes, well, right now we are actually working with the town engineer through consulting, as well as with the director of operational services regarding the servicing issues related to the property. So we are working with them, and the applicants will be confirming for us the yield, as well as the yield of the sewage, as well as the water that will be required.
yeah, that'd be
Yes.
good information.
Yes, I
Yes.
think it would be helpful. Yeah. Okay, thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who needs to speak on this issue? Tim, you're not going to come up and speak? No. It's perfectly all right. You don't have to. So I will ask this, absolutely. Please come up to the microphone. Mrs. Hebert.
Yeah, I'm Kathy Hebert, and my husband Tim and I are owners of the property in question, and there are at least 4 parking spots out front and additional parking available. So we, we know how many people we are renting to. There is adequate parking, and we just want to say that we are absolutely in favor of this development and pleased to see some new industry in town.
Good. Thank you very much. That's helpful to know. Oh, Kathy, could you stop for a
Gotta
sec?
come back up.
Councillor Youngberg would like to ask you.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi there.
Are you prepared to, just a question, to remove some of the storage items in the back if they were required to use it for parking? Or is that a contractual agreement that you have with the people at the back?
I hate to say it, but most of the stuff in the back is ours. And any little bit of help that I can get for Tim to get rid of some of the stuff is all good.
That's a positive, thank you.
I see a garage sale in your future, Tim.
CJ has a large truck and a trailer, and he'd be happy to back it up. Thank you very much. So are there any other submissions? Anyone else like to speak? Oh, Councillor Campbell.
There's a gentleman, too, for a second.
He's just putting his coat on.
So what I've heard is a lot of good questions, a lot of valid concerns, but a lot of speculation at the same time. So I think we're at a point now where we're in a fact-finding mission, more to do with the process and the fumes and the water situation than anything. And it seems to me that if those facts come to light and alleviate any concerns, those, am I wrong in saying that those are the concerns? I mean, that sort of alleviates everybody's concerns.
Air quality mostly. And
Yes.
the spurs, the
Okay.
mold spurs in the air is important for all the people that have asthma that live there.
Yeah, mold's a big problem.
We have to
Okay.
move.
Okay.
We definitely hear everybody, and we will look into these issues for sure. We'll make sure that they're dealt with before we go any further with this. So for the third time, is there anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Please come up to the microphone.
My name is Vern Shear. I'm living in Cactus Flats. And my concern is a little bit about the traffic, which has already been alluded to. I know Lakeshore Drive is a major thoroughfare. During the summer months, if there's 6 or 8 cars lined up at the stop sign to get onto the highway, you're lucky. So that is a concern. Also, I wondered how many commercial vehicles would be attending at that site as opposed to private passenger. I mean, there may be small buses and tours like that, but product has to be brought in and distributed and be moved. So that would be a concern I would have. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for bringing that up. We'll add that to the list. Councillor Rhodes?
Well, just while we're dwelling on the traffic light situation at that particular intersection, I would like to just give you a little bit of a synopsis on the time and money that was put into putting the one that's on Cottonwood. It was about a 6-year project. It was a very, very intense project because regrettably but factually the highway is owned by the provincial body, and they control absolutely everything that goes on and around and near any piece of property they deem to be a highway. That becomes extremely problematic. Once you work with them, they went through just one little tidbit about it. They did a traffic analysis and they found out that Cottonwood was the most favorable place to put a traffic light. That traffic analysis took weeks and weeks and weeks of people sitting there counting and evaluating every car that went through that intersection. And then they went down to Lakeshore, so you can see the intensity about it. So once you work all that stuff out and you get to the point, well, we're going to put one up, then the harsh reality of cost also kicks in. And I don't have any way of verifying it, but I think it's about $400,000, somewhere in that area. I could be out a couple of $100,000 either way. It's a lot of money, and you can see the complexity and the dynamics of trying to get a traffic light on a intersection where you don't own the property. And if it sounds like I'm being critical of our highway department, I am kind of. They're hard people to deal with. And at the end of the day, the community, referring to the taxpayers like yourself here, get to kick in a huge portion of that money to put these traffic lights up. So, if we began that process today, it would be years down the road before we ever got an answer. Yeah, well,
we do all the time. We talk to them.
Yeah, it's a work in progress thing.
All the time.
We know the importance of having that.
6-month type of arrangement. You wouldn't need it in the wintertime. It could be just run as a green light, red light arrangement. But it's so dangerous now because across the street is the amusement park, then the hotel. There's no stop signs to stop them from coming out. And people are pulling out on the lakeshore. People with hot bricks coming down the hill off of Anacus Mountain. And it's quite a dangerous position sometimes, and I'm quite amazed that somebody hasn't been hurt.
Children
crossing
the
highway there. It's just awful.
We definitely are aware of it. So, and it's something we deal with highways often, isn't it?
Okay.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor Cordoff.
Campbell.
I also think it's important to differentiate the concept of a business opening that does fit into the current zoning or this particular business. And I think when we're talking about traffic or adding to traffic with a business opening there, it's less to do about a rezoning situation. It's more to do with any business going in that could be successful is going to generate more traffic. This to me is more about this hearing is more about a rezoning to fit this industry into that area. So I think it's important that we sort of separate that, as that's going to be a concern for you folks, regardless of any type of business opening. If they're going to be successful, it's going to generate more traffic.
Yeah, once the rezoning goes through, then any businesses of that kind of nature can then enter into that business park area and create another problem, rezoning again, or it's already being rezoned for these particular people, which is fine with us, but it just happens to be, it's a difficult thing to have in such a close proximity to the residential area. I mean,
sure.
I'm not against what they're trying to do. What I prefer if they were up at the old auto parts place, where it was that better access to the highway, access right next to the rental place.
There's only one home there.
And then there'd be anything to bother anybody. But you understand what I'm saying?
We do.
The proximity to
to the residential area.
And that's really exactly why we have a public hearing, so that we can hear from you all of the concerns that you have, and we will take that under advisement. The planning department, fire department, town staff will definitely look further at this.
Okay, thank you.
So I thank you all very much for coming and for stating your concerns and showing your support, and for the applicants for coming, and thank you very much. We'll call this public hearing adjourned. Councillor Campbell, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor of adjourning? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.